And welcome to another Ransom's Weekly Wraps. This week we'll do things a little differently. I'm going to cover only one, story in terms of markets, and then we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into AI, considering all the news that's happened around OpenAI over the last week or so. Okay, starting off with one story of the week from the markets. That's the CPI number for South Africa. South African CPI came in just below the target level of 6%, up a little bit of a target level of 6%. So in South Africa, we have a range for CPI. We want it to be between 3 and 6%. Ideally, 4.5, right in the middle, is the number we want to aim for. But this number came in just below 6. It was about 0.1% below it. We were expecting somewhere closer to like 5.2. Sorry, that is obviously quite a big miss. A couple of things affected it. Most notably, we were seeing still food pressure coming through. Things like eggs and chicken we talked about in a while back. Are inflated because of what's happening around avian influenza, or bird flu as they call it. This is a significant problem. Chicken's like the big source of protein in South Africa, chicken and eggs, and the fact that we have seen price increases the last easily in the double digits for both of these over the last little while has made a big impact on terms of food inflation in South Africa. We do expect that this will alleviate, however. And there are also other factors coming into play that I think are going to help us with regards to inflation. Firstly, the oil price is down significantly. For much of the month, it was hovering just above $80 a barrel, and some points even dipped slightly below it. We saw the rand stronger as well. I mean, the last couple of months we were seeing above 19 for most of the time. Now in the mid 18s, at one point in time we got as low as like 18.30. So the rand should be, and the oil price should be helping us as well as when the flock gets restocked in terms of poultry. This is a temporary measure. We will see poultry prices fall again, egg prices fall again. It's just that right now, because of the culling that's due to the avian influenza, we are seeing this uptick. What this all led to was the Reserve Bank doing nothing. I mean, the Reserve Bank is probably going to do nothing anyway, but this was just made more likely. There was no chance of a rate cut coming through at the moment. Quite frankly, we were seeing, bit of positivity around the US, Europe, etc., the UK, in terms of how their inflation has fallen. And when the UK and the US and stuff start cutting, maybe the Reserve Bank might see the possibility of cutting as well in South Africa. But until that happens, we just can't take the risk of cutting. Remember, if we do cut and the market does not like it, the rand will weaken. That will cause inflation because of the imported prices will go up. And then cause the rand to basically, will cause the Reserve Bank to have to go back and raise interest rates anyway and take away those cuts. So we can't cut prematurely. It's just going to be self-defeating. So yeah, this week we had the MPC, and rates stayed the same. So yeah, the overall situation in South Africa not quite as good as internationally, but I do think it's a temporary measure, and I do think we will get back on track in the next few months or so. Next, our deep dive into AI. Okay, for the last week, basically starting last week Friday or so, we had a huge turmoil in the AI sphere when Sam Altman, the guy that basically founded and ran OpenAI, was fired by his board. Now, do you understand what's happening here? We have to go into a bit of detail about how OpenAI was created, what its mission was, and what the current structure is. Okay. OpenAI was created when Google bought DeepMind. When Google bought DeepMind, it basically took a monopoly effectively in the AI space. And people like Elon Musk thought this was very dangerous because they'll give Google an unassailable advantage in AI. And so he got together with some of his friends and they funded a company called OpenAI. They got Sam Altman to run it. They got a guy called Ilyas Sitskaya. He's a very well-regarded person in the AI space to be the chief scientist. And they kind of like stocked it up with a small group of really, really dedicated people. And since that was occurred, a few years ago, we have the creation right now of at least $100 billion of valuation, $1 billion of valuation, because that's the kind of valuation that people are putting on the OpenAI's, business at the moment. So it started off as a foundation, a charity, effectively. It was meant to be OpenAI because apparently those will give all the secrets to the world and whatever. Then a few years ago, they decided, no, that's not going to be the path. It's too dangerous to give everything away, so they're going to be more closed. Also, it could be the fact that they realized they were creating some real economic value here. And it's one thing to basically say, we're going to mine and give away whatever you find. Then you find the mother lode and you find $100 billion of gold. giving it away is not going to be as attractive. Okay, so what they did was they said we're going to split this company into two parts, or this thing into two parts. We have the foundation, runs the company, runs this corporation, or runs this entity, let me say, and then we're going to create a for-profit entity. And that for-profit entity is going to go out and get some money because it's still a piece of itself. We can have investors, places like Microsoft and so on, come and buy a piece of our company, and we'll use that money to develop AI. Okay, Microsoft has built over 10 billion into this thing, as a strong partnership with cloud and so on. Apparently, the guy that runs Microsoft, Satya Nadella, by the way, Satya Nadella is arguably the best CEO in the world over the last 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years or so. Since he's taken charge of Microsoft less than a decade ago, it has done more in terms of value creation than it did basically under the entire reign of Steve Ballmer. And not just more. Steve Ballmer's reign from start to finish, probably the company was flat at best and slightly negative at worst. Since Satya Nadella has taken over, it's 8+ times more valuable. Okay, so short period of time, doing nothing versus making the company 8 times more valuable plus. Okay, now Satya Nadella has been very aggressive in the AI space. He's basically driven this AI acquisition by Microsoft. He's driven some partnerships they've had, etc. Anyway, so they have the foundation, the charity, and the charity goes off and basically creates this this company, and people can invest in the company. And from this Microsoft investment till now, this is like a couple of years later, we are seeing people like to invest in this company at valuations, like I said, $90 to $100 billion. Now, there's some weird things about how this company was run and what the thing was. There was basically an idea that you were limited to how much upside there would be created. Because these people really believe in AI. They believe AI is going to be an infinite source of wealth. And you can't just give infinite wealth to everybody that invests in it. They say, okay, you put your money in, you'll get 10 times your money back maximum. That's your limit. Okay. And companies have been happy to do that because the value is so great. And then last week, the board that still runs the foundation, the charity, decided to fire Sam Altman, who's basically the guy in charge of everything. And this came out of nowhere, and it was quite surprising. And replacing him with one of his subordinates, a lady called Mira. Badly also, there's there's about 5 people at OpenAI, and she's one of the big people at OpenAI. You often see her at the like the news events. You see them at interviews and so on. She's one of the people that does that. Anyway, what happened was that broke the weekend, and so markets were closed and a lot of stuff was happening. And now Microsoft, because it's the biggest investor in OpenAI, was taken totally by surprise. But they're the biggest investor in OpenAI, the private company, not in OpenAI, the foundation, because the foundation has no investors. It's a charity. And the way the structure works is that the charity runs everything. Yes, it basically you have, the company, the private investable company, for-profit company, worth maybe $100 billion, but it's still controlled by this charity. And the charity has a right to fire or hire whoever they want to. And obviously, however, you put a $10+ billion into something, you are going to be very irritated if the company that you invested in suddenly has the CEO removed when without you even being advised in advance. So Satya Nadella got a little concerned about this, and he's basically trying to get a plan together to go and rescue his investment effectively. And the second thing that happened was that the employees at OpenAI basically revolted. Something like about 90% of the employees, we look at 700 out of 770 people, 90+% of the employees said they will quit unless Sam Altman is reinstated. Now, this shows to a certain extent, I always say, if the people that work for you, that kind of like you that much, it's a great statement about your character. There's plenty of people out there who have obviously done great things. People like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and maybe even Bill Gates, who have done great things. But generally, many people that work for them have pretty much come out and said these guys are jerks. Even people like Steve Wozniak thinks like Steve Jobs was a genius but a jerk. Many people who have worked for Elon Musk thinks he's a genius but a jerk. It seems that Sam Altman is probably a genius and probably a really nice guy as well, because to have 90% of your people that work for you come and say, we are willing to walk unless you bring this man back, shows just the kind of feeling, the loyalty that they have to him. So that happened. Now Microsoft saw maybe an opportunity here, and they said, okay, if 90% of people walk, and Sam Altman's not working anymore. Why don't we get Sam Altman and these 90% of people that walk to come and work for us directly? Hey, a company like OpenAI is pretty much all about intellectual property. It's about the brains. You know what I mean? It's not about machinery. It's not about clusters of GPUs. It's about the brain power behind the researchers that are making this thing. It's not about the old model. It's about the next model, and it's all about the brain power of the researchers. If you took 90% of OpenAI's people plus Sam Altman, you have OpenAI. And like I said, OpenAI is a $100 billion company. So Microsoft was possibly going to walk in there and get $100 billion of value for nothing, effectively just paying salaries and whatnot. And then what also happened was the CEO that they hired to replace Sam Altman, okay, a guy called Shira, he basically said, first of all, he was like the third or fourth pick that said yes to it. They went through a bunch of people saying, okay, would you replace Sam Altman? And because of the reputation Sam has in the AI sphere, almost nobody was willing to take this job, except for this one guy who used to run Twitch, back in the day. And he said, okay, I'll take over the job. But then he steps in, and what does he do? He says, unless you have a clear and independent investigation as to what Sam Altman's actual crimes were, actual misdeeds were, I'm going to quit. And so he basically gets in and becomes like a Trojan horse and turns against the board. Then one of the big board members, also by this time already, the person that they wanted to replace, first the person wanted to replace was the Lady Mira, and she basically was also quit. She said she'd support Sam, so they had to find another CEO to replace her. And this guy Shira came in, and he basically also kind of turned into a bit of a Trojan horse and took Sam's side. And then another board member, Ilya, the guy that basically, like I said, this chief scientist, also jumped over to Sam's side. And then suddenly what happened was the board found itself without employees, without any support, and what their biggest investor looking, on their side. So it became untenable. And so what happened next was effectively everything returned back, except for the fact the board now is gone. Okay, so Sam is back in charge, and all the people are kind of like back to their old positions, and the temporary CEO has left effectively. And he's initially when he was hired, there was a thought that he was a traitor to Sam or whatever, but now it seems that he basically was getting in there to basically try and get resolution to this whole thing. Now, a couple of rumors that circulated. So why exactly was Sam Altman fired? And the idea was that there's a thing called Q star. Okay, it's like Q with an asterisk, Q star is pronounced. That was created by OpenAI that may be on the verge, if not already at AGI. Okay, there's no kind of confirmation about this, but there is that rumor going around that it was a case of the board, because the board was created for safety. This company was not created to make money. It was not created to basically make a huge profit to create $100 billion plus in valuation. It was created to basically ensure AI safety. And it was possible that what the board saw was that Sam was going over safety in order to get valuation. Okay, so that was one issue. But the actual reasons given by the board were weird. Firstly, they said it was because Sam had given two different opinions to two different board members about a subordinate. So he said one guy, this guy is good. Another guy said this guy is bad, and that was contradicting. The second thing was apparently he allocated two people to the same project, to be in charge of the same project, so bad management. That's not exactly why you would take away the CEO of a $100 billion company. The CEO of a $100 billion company gets taken away because he stole money or there's some kind of scandal or something, not something stupid like this. So it didn't make sense. And the employees basically kind of said the same thing. But getting back to the idea that there's something happening at OpenAI right now that's a bit different. People have went back and looked at old interviews about OpenAI in the last couple of months or so, and they found a little clip with Sam Altman saying, he's been at lucky to have been present when breakthroughs are made, huge scientific breakthroughs on the edge of like scientific understanding, etc. were made. And the last couple of weeks, he's seen another one. And people are kind of saying, okay, maybe this is also indicative that there's some kind of OpenAI AGI on the go here. And Elon Musk as well came out and asked, is there really something like this happening? Because obviously that was his big concern, that AGI was going to come. And for those that don't understand why there's such a risk, the risk is as follows. There's the belief and this is not just like a kind of fringe belief, you would think at least, or surveys have shown that at least half, 50% of people working on this stuff believe there's at least a 1 in 10 chance that AI kills everybody. Not like it's bad, not like it's, going to have negative consequences. It's that it destroys the human race and leaves us either all extinct or virtually, back to the Stone Age or something. It's kind of scary when there's 1 in 10 chance of this happening, and when the people that are actually building it and would know it the best are basically 50% there. So yeah, that is the AI risk, and there's a significant number of people that joined OpenAI because they believed in the AI risk, including Sam Altman apparently believes in the AI risk as well. So that is the background as to one thing here. The second thing I want to point out is the fact that it does appear right now that because of this whole turbulent interaction between Sam and the board and so on, that AI doomers, as they call people that are afraid of AI risk, are now really on the back foot, because it seems that this was a fight between those that want to slow things down and those that want to go as fast as possible, the doomers versus the accelerationists. And it seems those, whatever Sam Altman may be saying, he's an accelerationist at the moment, which could be very dangerous if these guys are correct. Okay, and then one last thing I want to leave you guys away with is this idea here. Over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of developments, or at least attempts to create new structures to non-for-profit organizations, or some weird kind of stakeholder kind of partnerships, etc., around companies. And what this whole OpenAI thing illustrates to me is that don't bother with that stuff. Use time-tested structures that have proven themselves over decades and centuries in order to create your company. Why? Well, the thing about capitalism is, the thing about having a normal company where people have shares and have options and that kind of stuff, and they share in that $100 billion valuation like OpenAI has right now, is that it's a very easy way to align a whole bunch of people in the same direction. However, when you have a company that has a board thinking about not-for-profits, thinking about all these other different principles, and have no linkages at all to the profits that have been created, well, this is actually a recipe for strife, because you have people who have control over, like I said, hundreds of billions of dollars of valuation. That's one followed by a bunch of zeros. You know what I mean? And yet have no stake in that money. And therefore they are able to do things and are willing to do things that a person that has a stake in that money would not be willing to do, and including destroy a whole bunch of value. It was quite possible, if things turn out slightly different, that by now, just like 7-8 days after it was first announced, these guys would have destroyed 50, maybe $80 billion of value in a week. One of the biggest value destructions, effectively, ever in history. And why? Because they basically had no stake in that value, and so they were not affected by the value destruction. Incentives matter, that's economics. And so now we're thinking that OpenAI is going to go more towards a normal incentive structure, including probably rewarding Sam Altman like a normal CEO, because right now he owns no shares and takes no compensation from OpenAI. That's great, despite, like I said, creating $100 billion of valuation. We're probably going to see employees get rewarded as well. And that's going to make OpenAI into just another Silicon Valley startup, but a Silicon Valley startup which seems to have the edge in technology. And when I leave you for one last thing, another thing that came out this week from OpenAI was a new app on for your phone. Go and download it. It's now allows you to talk to ChatGPT. No more prompts typing in, etc. You can just ask it a question and it'll answer you. You can ask it to tell you a story about a horse and a dog, basically having an adventure on the moon, and it'll tell you a story. You can ask it, how many liters of paint do you need to paint a room of this particular size? It'll tell you an answer. Very useful, very cool, and that's it for this week. Cheers. See you again next week.